Kevin McCarthy faces pressure as clock ticks down to avoid government shutdown. You know what's really interesting about the government shutdown? I feel like it's so deeply unserious that nowadays, it feels like the media is not even covering it because they're like, come on, dude. Like, it's just, it happens so fucking frequently. It happens so fucking much that it never actually ends up being like a serious problem. And it's also something that shouldn't even exist. Like, this issue should never exist anyway. That I feel like the media doesn't even take it seriously no more, you know, which is crazy.
Potential government shutdown. The clock is ticking down. Another setback for Speaker McCarthy. Hardline Republicans blocked a defense spending bill from advancing as McCarthy struggles to get enough votes from his own party. Senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott is on Capitol Hill with the latest. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning. And this was a major defeat for House Republicans overnight. They couldn't even get enough votes to pass their own defense spending bill, raising even more questions about whether Speaker McCarthy can get the votes to avoid a government shutdown. This morning, with the clock ticking, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy facing increasing pressure to unite his party and avert a government shutdown.
I don't think it's right that government shuts down, and that's why I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen.
But the rebellion within his own ranks leaves McCarthy in a perilous situation. Some even calling him a weak speaker, threatening to oust him.
Kevin McCarthy would never put anything above his own power and his own ambition. He's not just an ineffective leader, but a morally bankrupt one.
It's the biggest test for the speaker since the debt ceiling showdown, with members of his own caucus demanding deeper spending cuts and stricter border policies, both non-starters for the Democrats in the Senate.
Slapdash, because it's not a serious proposal for avoiding a shutdown.
The Republican proposal doesn't include any of the $24 billion the
motherfucking never kevers, baby. The never kevers, dude. Rise up, never kevers. Get involved. Okay? Get involved, get active, ruin the government. I'm such a fan.
White House is requesting for Ukraine. McCarthy preparing to meet with Zelensky tomorrow, making no promises. Will you commit to another round of funding for Ukraine?
Is Zelensky elected to Congress? Is he our president? I don't think I have to commit anything.
If the government does shut down, more than 4 million government workers could lose pay, including some military troops and members of law enforcement. Money would run out for disaster relief, and 10,000 children would lose access to Head Start. With time running out, some Republicans now begging the hard-right members of their party to reverse course.
We came here and we took an oath when the 118th Congress began to do the people's work and to govern. And right now, we have certain individuals holding that work hostage.
So Congress has just 11 days to avoid a government shutdown. Pretty much every Democrat and Republican here on Capitol Hill wants to avoid this, but they cannot figure out a solution on just how to do it, George.
Okay, Rachel, thanks. Also today, Attorney General Merrick Garland on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, Attorney General Merrick Garland will be in the hot seat testifying before the House Judiciary Committee. This will be the first time he testifies before lawmakers since the special counsels he appointed indicted both former President Donald Trump and the president's son, Hunter Biden. We are expecting this to be a contentious hearing. We know House Republicans have long accused Garland of weaponizing the justice system, George.
Okay, Rachel Scott, thanks very much. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get...
Why are we, like... Petty Fresh Rogas Fuego, yeah. If they can't, they shouldn't get paid is such a funny fucking take because their job is technically to not do that. If you're on the Republican side, at least. Like, the Republican job now is quite literally to stop. The Republican Party's job is quite literally to stop the government from operating. Okay, there's a David Dame piece that I'm going to get into in a second. But, you know, the Republican job, at the very least, is to stop the government from actually operating. Without legitimately stopping it, but also simultaneously fucking complain about erroneous, ridiculous, unimportant things that demonstrate their incompetence or how unserious they are as a collective. It's awesome. It's great. And it's basically the same for right-wing parties all around the world. It's not even different. It's not even all that different for like Tories and shit. You know what I mean? Like look to the Republican Party here in America, and you will see obvious comparisons to, you know, your own hogs in your own country, in your own nation. Here is John Fetterman offering to wear a suit next week if House Republicans agree to prevent a government shutdown. Fetterman on the GOP, if you don't shut down the government, I will wear a suit next week, he says. I mean, it's just people are memeing. People are having fun with it. People are memeing around. Meanwhile, we're just a deeply unserious group of individuals, okay? Government shutdowns, why it happens only in America when it doesn't actually happen, but why does it happen, or why is it even a thing that will happen? Let's take a look. Why is the government constantly on the verge of shutdown is a question you might ask. Well, as always, let's go to Vox.com to describe it. Why is this a thing that only apparently happens in the one country on the planet? America is the best at having unnecessary conversations over the government shutting down, unnecessary, warfare happening on our fucking streets, and also, number one at medical debt, medical bankruptcy, number one at school shootings, number one at mass shootings, number one at violence, number one at the prisoner population. Both per capita and totality, mind you. It's great. We're so fucking good. We have government shutdowns in Europe too sometimes. Yes, but your governments don't even fucking operate for the most part. And the government shutdowns over something as stupid as the budget is idiotic, okay? It's like shutting down the stream at the top of the hour because there is a fucking 3-minute ad break. It's not going to happen. You can very easily avoid it by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, okay? It's that simple. It's that easy. All you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account or by getting gifted a sub if you are lucky. Okay, here's the 3-minute ad break now. No reason to shut down the stream unless Twitch actually fucks up, because it has been fucking up this morning. So maybe it will shut down the stream. Who knows? But here, I digress. Why is the U.S. government always shutting down? Let's take a look.
It gets full and there's a government shutdown. People don't stop throwing stuff on top of it. But I did manage to pick up a couple truckloads of trash before I was told don't do it anymore. People were not even able to volunteer during the government shutdown.
The U.S. is the only country in the world where the government can actually shut down. And the threat looms nearly every year.
7 days till shutdown?
4 days. T-minus 6 days.
5 days.
Government shutdown at midnight tonight.
I just feel that gut, in my chest, not again.
So why does the U.S. even shut down? And what happens when it does?
You travel 3,500 miles to America and find the place shut down.
Every government in the world has to do the same thing, decide how to spend the country's money. In the U.S., they do that by passing spending bills called appropriations bills that give these federal agencies their budgets. It happens every year or every fiscal year. Japan is April 1st, in Kenya, it's July 1st, in the US, it's October 1st. And if the government misses that deadline...
The budget wasn't passed. We have no money. And then, you have to come to work anyway, just not getting paid.
We did get back pay, but still you have to wait for that.
The saddest thing I ever seen was all these hardworking people in a line for their food bank.
It's the conversation at the dinner table every single night. Well, Dad, do you know when you're going to get paid again? No, I don't.
It's the way the U.S. government was set up, kind of.
The answer to why we have government shutdowns actually starts in the Constitution.
No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law.
And so what that really means is that before any federal money can be spent, there has to be an actual appropriations law allowing it.
But that can be interpreted in different ways, and it has changed over time. Back in the 1800s, there were no shutdowns, but there were other problems.
Agencies would routinely blow through their budgets, then keep spending, and would come back to Congress and ask for more. So Congress passed the Anti-Deficiency Act. It tells federal officials that they really, really can't spend money without an appropriation.
But that didn't stop the government from missing their deadline and creating long gaps in funding. As recently as the 1970s, there were plenty of these funding gaps. And yet,
the agencies sort of pretty much just kept going. It couldn't possibly be that Congress wanted them to shut down if there was no budget bill passed on time, right? What happened was, in the early 1980s, the Attorney General issued 2 opinions that
one America, 2 systems, baby.
Tightened up this interpretation.
The opinions basically said, no, seriously, unless Congress has passed an appropriations bill, agencies can't spend any money. including to employ the services of their employees.
Even though there technically is money, we have no access to it.
And since then, the US has shut down many times. 1996 was the first big one for 3 weeks, and 2019 was the longest in history so far.
I actually got to work and they was like, we're on furlough, they shut the building down. I was like, oh, the door, they're not opening right now? They were like, no, it's shut down completely. I was like, what is a furlough? What's going on?
I couldn't work. I couldn't go in. We weren't even allowed to check email.
I ended up, picking up side jobs, right, trying to make ends meet.
These are all the agencies of the federal government. Here are the ones that actually shut down in 1996 and in 2019.
Shutdowns don't have to be of the whole government. So it might just be that one set of agencies didn't get funded. Congress couldn't reach agreement with each other and with the president on whether that set of agencies would get funded, but the rest of the government was funded perfectly well.
In 2019, around 800,000 federal employees didn't get a paycheck for 35 days. But more than half of them still had to go into work, because there are some jobs that the Attorney General said are exempt from stopping completely, what we call essential employees. So while the Department of Transportation was shut down, air traffic controllers still had to work.
I don't show up with a headset and just do that job by myself. All the other aviation safety professionals that assist us and help us on a daily.
I mean, yeah, people will fucking die. Like, that's it. It's that simple. People will just, here's the problem, man. Everybody in America loves thinking that the fucking government is just shit and it sucks and it's expensive and it's massive and it's unnecessary. But it's like, without it, you're dead. Okay? Without it, you're literally dead. There are so many parts of the government and so many parts that are contracted by the government that we have basically turned invisible through our hyper-individualist mentality. That we just take for granted simply because it works every single fucking day. Now, what do I mean by this? A great example of this is the railroad, the freight trains, right? Like not the public transit railroads, which are also very important, but railroads in general that, carry freight trains that carry chemicals that are a necessity for survival. It's like this kind of stuff is just completely taken for granted because all matter of collective action, like collectivization, all matter of like people working alongside one another to make all this stuff work is turned invisible by these psychotic, hyper-individualistic, reactionary weirdos in government. Okay? It's so dumb. It's so silly. Like, yeah, the government is expensive. It's expansive and it's massive. It has awesome powers and it needs to exist, okay? That's why whenever people yell at me and they talk about like taxes, for example, like Hasan, don't you get mad that like you're paying European taxes? I'm in the highest tax bracket in the state of California where there's 13% income tax. All of my money as a 1099 employee, which is, the highest form of contractor pay that you can get from a company like Amazon. I'm a 1099 employee. I'm a contracted Amazon employee, right? 37% at the federal level, highest tax bracket, 13% on state income, okay? 37 plus 13, Lamau, that's nothing compared to Euro taxes. That's not true. What you're saying is simply untrue, okay? It's not true. If you're a simple 1099 employee, my fucking real taxes that I pay, especially when you compare the benefits I get, that is when adjusted to the European existence, okay? When you adjust it to like what you get back, like what your government takeaway is, all of that shit essentially turns into Americans paying significantly more in taxes and getting nothing in fucking return if they're a W-2 or a 1099 employee. Okay? People make it seem like in Europe, they live in socialist nations and they're just fucking, if you're living in Europe, you're living in a socialist existence, and they just like take all your fucking, garnish your wages basically, and you're fucked and you're screwed and blah blah blah. And it's like, especially with all the amenities the government offers, okay, plenty of European social democracies pay lower taxes in general. And the reason why the tax code is written that way is because it's written that way because the American society is designed around the highest earners being basketball players, fucking doctors, lawyers, and other people that make the largest chunk of their money off of contracts, like contracted fucking like celebrities, you know what I mean? Twitch streamers. Whereas the real earners that are able to avoid taxes are in the C-suite, executives, people in finance, because they're able to, they're not like contracted 1099. They're not contracted 1099 salaried employees in that regard. It's like a tiny marginal percentage of their actual salary comes from a W-2 salary, right? Most of their money is tied to their motherfucking stocks.
High value
stock
homes
options, their stock performance, their portfolio, which they can easily, oftentimes, draw credit against. Okay? So ultimately, the American tax system is basically designed to tax someone like LeBron James and not the motherfucker who owns the team. Do you understand? That's how it works. Now, having said all of that, when people say, dude, what the fuck? What are you doing? Like, oh, don't you hate when you're paying taxes? Like, a lot of that is going to war and bombing brown children or whatever. Yeah, that part sucks. A lot of my local taxes go directly into the pockets of the police force that ain't doing their fucking jobs anyway. A lot of my, a lot of the federal taxes are going directly into the pocket of the military industrial complex, subsidies for mega corporations. Anyway, but there is still a massive lump of that money that goes into things like schools, roads, public transportation, even though there is not a lot, infrastructure spending, things like that still get funded. And that is important, and that needs to exist. That's why I don't mind paying taxes. So that's something to understand. You're missing the point I'm trying to make. You said, no, dude, all those famous celebrities get called out time after time for tax evading. I'm not talking about people who engage in tax evasion. I'm talking about like how tax code is written. When you write tax code, you're supposed to hit every income bracket, okay? And you're supposed to hit every kind of compensation structure. Whereas in the United States of America, compensation structure is very limited. Like the taxes that we've been able to write in our code is specifically limited to earners, okay? Waged employees. If you are making money off of capital gains, if you are a capitalist, okay, then your taxable income and the percentage of the wealth that you have accumulated over the end of a year in an annual period is significantly smaller. That's why when you look at someone like yourself, a person that works a job, the real income that you earn, or the actual tax burden off of like how much your net worth has moved, is around 30-40%, whereas for the wealthiest 1% who make their money not by being a fucking 1099 employee or a W-2 wagee, the real people that make their income, that generate their wealth year over year, that keep expanding on their wealth, those guys pay like literally 1% of their entire earnings over the year. Yes, long-term held stock is capped at 15%, and that is by design. Okay, that's it. That is by design. A major part of, for example, the issue with CEO compensation is that CEO compensation being pegged to stock performance, and CEO compensation being largely made through stock performance and stock options was the reason why CEO compensation skyrocketed from like 15-1 in comparison to the average salary to 400-1 in 2023. That is directly a consequence of the CEO compensation structure changing to what I just mentioned to you. Okay? CEOs don't fucking make money off of like direct salaries. They make money off of their stock options. They make money off of like the company's stock going bananas mode. Okay, that's how this works. And this also is tied into the reality that, for example, okay, this also is tied into the reality that when all of these like ProPublica style, or the international consortium of journalists get together and they like do this deep dive and uncover like tax shelters, like offshoring, the concept of offshoring, they always find like European leaders or even Zelensky or fucking, I don't know, some like despotic dictator or whatever that has sheltered their assets in an island, right? Why are there never any Americans on there? Is it because they know to avoid those places? Is it because they are, is it because the ICJ is actually like led by the CIA or something and only like hits America's fucking foreign adversaries? No. I love a good conspiracy about America being fucking bad and the CIA being involved in shit, but the major reason as to why you never see American fucking names on there is because Americans don't have to go to the Cayman Islands. They can go to Delaware. They can go to South Dakota. They can go to America to shelter their fucking assets because America is one gigantic tax haven. That's how this shit works. Why in the ever-loving fuck would you have to like move your assets offshore to hide them from government scrutiny when you can just legally do that here under the existing tax code, okay? That's it. How the fuck do we get here? Oh, I was talking about how important it is that the government still operates regardless. And although we do pay a ton of taxes as American citizens in comparison to our European counterparts with not many amenities being offered to us, there's still plenty of things that we take for granted that absolutely just has to work for you to continue existing in the way that you do. None of this shit is on autopilot. There are humans behind the dials, okay?
Daily basis are now taken away.
Homeland Security shut down, but TSA workers still had to show up without pay.
We're one of the lowest paid agencies. Not receiving a check every 2 weeks was hard. People were on the floor with smiling, greeting everyone. Behind closed doors in the break room, you had people breaking down.
National parks lost millions in entry fees. Wildfire mitigation projects were delayed. Immigration court hearings backlogged. And there were thousands of contractors that worked with all of these agencies who were also affected.
If you were just working on a contract with a company, you did not get back pay at all. My son had chronic asthma, couldn't afford his medicine. I felt like I was disappointing them, and it wasn't even my fault.
And a shutdown isn't just centralized in Washington, D.C. Only 15% of all federal employees live in that area, which means the economic impact is countrywide.
Shutting down not only affects the federal workers, if people aren't getting paid, they're not going out to eat. There is a severe economic impact of something like that, especially in a town like Huntsville.
Overall, the U.S. economy lost $11 billion during the 2019 shutdown. Some of that was regained when employees received their back pay, but the damage was done. And the thing is, this doesn't have to happen.
The legal framework explains why we end up having to have shutdowns as a matter of law, but why we have shutdowns truly is a matter of politics, which is that the more polarized the parties are and the more divided our government is, the harder a time Congress and the president have working out a budget agreement.
And having divisive politics isn't uniquely American. In Belgium, there have been times where the politics were so bad, they just...
I mean, yeah, that's different, though. Belgium is not a real country, and it just goes without having a government. There's just, like, places in Europe that I refuse to call countries that just will go for extended periods of time without just having a government, okay? Which is dumb, but it's still somehow not as fucking dumb as having a self-imposed government shutdown because of a made-up reason.
Didn't have a government.
We didn't really notice any difference. Our daily lives, it didn't really change much.
I don't think the government could really, stop.
Most countries couldn't. In nearly every other country, if the government were to fail to pass a budget by the deadline, agencies would just continue working with last year's budget. There's a push to do that in the US, too. Just have an automatic temporary appropriations bill pass when the deadline is missed.
The opposing argument to that is, whoa, this is the one time we have every year to reset and to kind of work things out. And so where would the incentive go?
Congress has passed fewer and fewer laws each year. Passing these appropriation bills has been...
This is such a funny thing, too, because it's like, oh, I wonder why. It's because the Republicans have won, okay? The Republicans spiritually defend American capitalism openly and better than the Democrats do, okay? That's it. They do a better job of defending capitalism than the Democratic Party does, at least on the front of, at least aesthetically, okay? And as a consequence of that, we've gotten to a point where they were able to basically eviscerate the duty of the federal government. They've done it. They've starved the beast out perfectly, and they get zero repercussions from their voters for doing so. There's no punishments for starving out the beast, and their actual voter base likes it. They love that shit. They personally love that shit. But what are you supposed to do?
Become the one time they're kind of forced to agree on something. And as the political ideology of Congress grows further apart each year, the likelihood of them agreeing on time kind of goes down. So every fall,
Washington's version of Groundhog Day, another government shutdown looms.
We are caught as pawns.
Pawns in an ultimate game as a federal employee in a conversation that has nothing to do with us.
We're not like going to work, like increasing the profit of a CEO. Like we're doing public services and now I'm not getting a paycheck. It's crazy.
Genuine non-American person, can't they just say, fuck you, I quit, and get a job that actually pays wages and doesn't have you work for free? I don't understand this entire thing. How fucking insane. No, man, you can't do that. The entire point of this is like they have to keep working. First of all, no one can just like quit and get another job. So that's number one. Can government workers not unionize? A lot of the public sector is unionized, as a matter of fact. I mean, it's like in comparison to the private sector, the public sector has more unions than the private sector. It's just that there are certain jobs that you just can't fucking quit. You know what I mean? Or you just can't stop working, even if you don't get paid, because everyone would die.